One of my favorite people in the world to interview is Justin Moore. He's got a brand new album coming out and a brand new song coming off of that album, and we're going to ask him about all of that. Also, I'm going to ask him what makes him so straightforward. So stand by. We're going to talk to him. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Thanks
This
for
is our
having me.
very first podcast, and you on the very first podcast is perfect.
I'm honored. This is cool.
We love interviewing you because you are so straightforward. So my first question is, do you think a rural upbringing made you this way? So a town of 300, that's what you were born into, that's where you grew up. Do you think that kind of an upbringing made you this open, or do you think that didn't have anything to do with it?
Possibly. You know, I mean, it's one of those deals where you can be straightforward with people back home or not. They're going to know all your business anyway, so you might as well tell them the truth. But, you know, I think it's just a byproduct of kind of the way my parents raised me and how they're always open and honest and kind of that way regardless of if it's a popular thing they're saying or not. They're pretty just forthcoming people, and so probably a combination of both, really.
Did you grow up on a farm?
Well, we had a lot of land, and you know, my grandpa had cows, and periodically we'd have horses and that kind of stuff. But it wasn't a working farm where we had to have it to put food on the table necessarily. It was more of a kind of a hobby kind of deal for my grandpa.
So what did your dad do for a living?
My dad actually worked for the Postal Service for, golly, over 30 years and just recently retired 3 or 4 years ago. And so between that and my parents owned a restaurant back home for 10 years.
Really?
So my mom and him both you know, were there all the time too. I was there all the time working when I was in high school, and so kind of a combination of the two. But he had a full-time job with the Postal Service, and my mom's mom was kind of fell ill, and so they had to sell it. But yeah, he worked for the Postal Service. He carried the mail for a long time, but later on in his career, he became something to where he just went around and talked to people, which is what he's good at. So I don't even know. He worked at the district office and taught classes and just ran his mouth. So
just ran his mouth.
That's where I get it. That's where I get it.
Okay, now we know. Now we know where he gets it.
That's it.
So you were in your uncle's band for a while growing up.
Yeah, and really I would just kind of go play with him whenever I could, you know, outside of, you know, ball games and stuff like that, because I was way into sports. And so that was the first opportunity I had to play with a band, which was, you know, ended up being some good practice and good experience. And it also kind of helped me decide what it was that I wanted to be as an artist, you know, because we played a lot of Southern rock. And so my music is tilted toward traditional country, but there are definitely Southern rock elements in it. So
you moved to Nashville in 2002?
2002, yeah. I graduated high school in, I guess, May, and I think I moved there in like September, October, after 2 weeks of college, and that didn't go well. So,
what were you trying to major in? What did you think?
I didn't know. I knew that I wanted to play music, and I wasn't really taking it seriously. And I was a guy who actually enjoyed school. I was our salutatorian, which class of 39 people. It's not that impressive.
It's kind
but
of
it's
impressive.
better than
that's right.
being 39 out of
right,
39.
Exactly.
So I enjoyed school and was good at it, and so I really didn't know. I was just going to go get some basics and stuff. And I remember I had a lit paper due, and I told my parents, I go, I'm not doing it. I'm not going back. And they're like, why, are you sick? I go, no, I'm never going back. And fortunately, they didn't get on to me and say I was crazy. They supported me. So.
Oh, that is great. There's a lot of kids in your family too, right?
I'm an only child. You didn't know that? I thought you knew that.
No,
there's a lot of kids in my family now, but they're my own. So no, I'm living in a completely different environment in which I grew up. So
this was their only child, and they went, "Yeah, go ahead, honey, quit college. It's fine."
And all all my buddies were just, I'm getting the hell out of Dodge kind of thing. And I was the only one who wanted to stay home. Hell, I'm the only one who left, you know,
Wow.
at the end of the day.
Okay, so 2002, fast forward, we're in Nashville. You meet Scott Borchetta.
Yeah, I had met, I had a manager when I moved up there. You know him well.
Yeah,
He's still my manager. We've never had a contract.
Jeremy, right?
He's my producer.
Okay.
But my manager, Pete.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, we've never had a contract. I think I met him when I was a junior or senior in high school. And so when I moved up there, I only had him. And so ran into Jeremy Stover, who's my longtime producer, and he had a relationship with Scott, and I was turned down by 2 or 3 other labels at this point, and as everybody is. And then I had been offered 1 record deal, but they told me I didn't have any songs, and I needed to change my producer, and so I got up and told them thank you, but no thank you, and I think that album is I think it's platinum now.
Yeah.
It was that album. So, and we had a few hit songs
Justin
off of
Moore,
it.
right? That was
our
Moore.
which is an original name. I don't know if you know this. There's never been an album named Justin Moore.
Awesome.
First time. But
Awesome.
no, then met Scott and right away I thought, man, this guy, obviously I knew his reputation, but I thought
So you knew then that he had started Taylor?
Yeah, and he had offered me a deal really early on, before Taylor was Taylor, you know what I mean? It was Taylor and Jack Ingram and I believe Danielle Peck, who was on Big Machine at the time.
Right.
And he had offered me a deal, and it just kind of kept pushing back dates and stuff like that. I'm like, man, I'm working a real job still.
What were you doing? What were you working
I was working in a stock room of a furniture store and selling meat out of the back of my truck and writing songs, but I only made $12,000 a year to write songs at the time. So,
Wow.
Anyway, he said, I'll give you a deal, you just got to be patient or whatever. So that's when he started the subsidiary Valerie music company, which I'm on, and it was myself and Jewel and Jimmy Wayne. So,
And look at you
crazy.
now.
Look at me now.
We are, so which number is Late Nights and Long Necks? Which album?
On the album?
No. Which?
05.
This
It's
is
our
the fifth album.
12th year into this, which is crazy.
Really crazy.
And I've known you for all of them.
I know,
No,
you
it's just-
have. It's
it's,
been awesome.
It's just hard to believe. I mean, I honestly somebody told me the other day, they said, I think you're singing better and I think this is your best songwriting, which I appreciate. And what do you attribute that to? And I think for me, it's the fact that all the pressure's off now for me. I don't, anything else we accomplish is a cherry on top.
So I heard you say 2 days ago that you thought Jesus and Jack Daniels on the album was the best song on it.
I definitely think it's one of them. I think, sometimes you just get it right when you're writing songs. Most of the time you don't. You write a lot of bad ones to write a few good ones. But, I really like the idea. And, you put Jesus and Jack Daniels together. That could be difficult to pull off, but I think we did it. And it's a totally different sounding song than we've ever done. The way it kind of moves.
Well, we've always said over and over again that you are one of the best singers in the format and that you don't get enough credit for being one of the best singers in the format. Do you think that song stretches you more?
Well, thank you, first and foremost. That song in particular is really easy to sing. It's not a real rangy song. There's a song on the album called On the Rocks, which is my wife's favorite song, and it's up there and down there. It's pretty rangy. I think there are definitely moments on the album where you can hear me singing, but we've always tried to do that. Really, it's something that we've always been cognizant about trying to showcase.
Was that your life? Was that your parents?
No, it wasn't. My dad don't even drink.
Oh, wow.
But
never has?
No, never has.
Wow, what a legacy.
Yeah. My mom will a little bit. I get my wild side from her side of the family. But No, not really. I would say there are moments in the song, me as the singer in the song narrating this hypothetical, relationship between a kid and their parents. I would definitely say I'm the guy who's singing, but it wasn't necessarily, a product of my parents, obviously.
Did Jeremy help you write it?
Jeremy, Paul DiGiovanni.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe Chase McGill's on this one.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. This is the most fun I've had making an album, which is saying something five into this whole thing. And so what we did was, and I may have told you this before at some point, but back when I first moved to town and first met Jeremy, we would just drive down to the beach in Florida, which was like a 7-mile ride, and rent a house and just drink beer and write songs. And so that was where a lot of my first couple of albums came from, the songs. And we loved doing it so much. We found a hole-in-the-wall studio down there, and half or more of my vocals on the first 2 albums are done in some little hole-in-the-wall studio in Destin, Florida.
Wow.
And so fast forward now, my wife and I own a place down there. And when we were talking about going back to doing a really, really traditional album, I said, man, why don't we go down to my house and just take, 5-6 weeks and bring our best buddies down that we like writing songs with. And that's kind of what we did. We just locked ourselves in, and so every song was wrote down there.
So do you worry that you might not have enough time for songwriting in the future? Or is that something you will always carve out, that you think that's part of the career?
I didn't take enough time on the last album, so I made it a point to do so on this one, because I love writing songs, and it's always been a big help in me defining myself as an artist and kind of having my own voice. And so I didn't do that on the last album. Plus, we went a little different direction on the last album. I feel like my chops are... I feel confident in myself in my ability to write really country songs, but when we stepped out and did some stuff like somebody else will and that kind of stuff, there are guys in town who do that a lot better than I do. So when we went back to the album that we made this time, I said I want to be a part of that process because I really missed it on the last album. So moving forward, not that I have to write every song, it just kind of happened on this album, but I definitely will make time for it.
Moving forward.
Moving forward.
So, the ones that didn't make it back home, what kind of an emotional toll does that song take when you meet people in meet and greets and they say, I'm the spouse of the one that didn't make it back home?
It's definitely emotional, which is where the song idea came from. I said we wrote every song down in Florida. This is the one exception. And you've probably heard me say this. I always talk about our military and police officers and firefighters every night before we play If Heaven Wasn't So Far Away.
You and Toby Keith, I think, have the most support, do the most to support the military.
Well, we try. I wish we had more time to do more than we do, but, every night we've played Heaven for now over 8 years, which is hard to believe, but I always say that, and I always end it by saying, we'll send this out to the ones that didn't make it back home. And I don't know why it took me 8 years to realize that would be a good song idea, but it just hit me one night when I said it on stage, and I thought, oh my gosh, I think that's a good idea. I so rarely have them, but I think this is actually a good one. So I just ironically had songwriters on the bus with me. Chase and Paul and Jeremy were out with me. And I came back to the bus after the show. I said, I think I got a pretty good song idea called The Ones That Didn't Make It Back Home. And they kind of all looked at each other. And if you're in a songwriter room and you throw out an idea and everybody kind of looks at each other, it's either a terrible idea or a really, really good idea. Fortunately, it was the latter in this case, but we wrote it the next morning, and here we are.
There we are.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next single, you have to tell the story that you told a country radio seminar. Yeah. Okay, so the next single is called Why We Drink.
Why We Drink.
Why We Drink, yes. So tell us the story.
Ironically, my mother gets credit for this one. She inspired it, I should say. So my mom and dad live like, and I know you know this, but they live like 400 or 500 yards from us. In the house that I grew up in, which when you need a babysitter is great.
It is great.
Other times it's not so great.
Right.
When they just help themselves in the middle of who knows what, anything and everything. And so I kid about them, but we're really close to them, and they've been great parents. And I talked about how supportive of me they've been, throughout this whole journey. But we go to dinner with them and stuff, and we were out somewhere at Chili's or Fridays or something like that, and we didn't have the kids, and my dad don't drink, so he always drives. And I ordered a drink, and then I ordered 3 or 4 more. You know me well. And my mom, who does drink occasionally, said, "Why do you drink so much?" And I'm like, "That's a good question. I've actually never thought about that." And then I thought about it for a minute, and I said, "Mom, I can't find a reason not to drink. I really like it. When my beloved Razorbacks lose, I have to drink. When they win, I have to celebrate with a drink. And then it kind of turned into this idea I had called Why Don't We Drink, and I think we wrote it. Dave Lee Murphy, I think I wrote this with, and Casey Beathard, and I threw this idea out and called Why Don't We Drink, but I didn't really know how to do it, and I think Casey or David Lee one said, "'Cause it's Friday, 'cause it's Monday," and so I thought, that's it. There you go. Every reason.
Love it. And I've never drank an ounce in my
Good for
life,
you.
ever.
Good
and
for
I
you.
love that song.
Thank you.
In fact, Nate said to me, "How is it that you don't drink and you like the drinking songs?" But that is one of the best songs I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you hadn't done music, do you think you would have had a great life doing play-by-play or, college football announcing or color? Do you think you would have loved that?
I could have, yeah. And I don't, in no way is this meant to be boastful, but I would have been successful in life at something.
Where does that come from? Because let's be clear, I've interviewed a lot of people. And maybe you saw the interview with Gayle King and R. Kelly.
No, I missed it.
It's out there. You need to look it up.
Okay.
She was grace under pressure. Let me just tell you. And all I could think was, all the people I've interviewed in my life, I don't know that I would have handled that as well as she did. But I've interviewed some very tough people in this business. And so why does Justin Moore emerge and the other people are just, it's like, I even called a record company once and said, never, ever let that artist do another interview ever under any circumstances because he was just so guarded. He was so guarded, it was impossible.
Wow. Let's get the elephant out of the room. We all know it was Luke Bryan.
No.
I'm kidding. I think what's funny about it is I don't know that they do it anymore, but they used to, as you know, do media training for the fans probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but kind of preparing us to know how to do this.
Right.
And they asked me before I did anything. They said, we probably need to get you into that, and I did a couple of interviews and Scott or somebody said, "Don't send him anywhere. That's the way we want him."
Yes.
Real. And so, I don't know. It's just, we talked about it when we first started being real.
Right.
I've always thought if you're real and you're honest from the beginning, I never had to come back to do a show with you guys and go, "What did I tell them last time?" You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I think you had to be confident, but not cocky, humble, but again, confident. And then when all else fails, make fun of yourself. I do that all the time,
One of the coolest things I have ever experienced in this business is when you had a bet with my morning show partner about Alabama
and
Arkansas. And then
I ain't won that bet ever.
He called and sang the Alabama fight song.
tough.
It was
tough.
awesome.
You always got to pay up on your bets. So.
It
Always
was,
got to.
because we honestly did not expect to hear from you. We did not expect to hear from you, and there you were.
Hey, you got to pay up on your bets. So,
Justin, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for spending time. I could not have asked for a better first podcast.
well,
so
thank you. I appreciate it. Hopefully, everybody continues to listen after they hear this. And they don't let me scare you off.
The name of the album is Late Night and Long Necks. It's I've heard 2 songs off of, actually 3 because of the current single, and it's awesome. So go get it.